Okay, I'm going to do a short video here for Physiopsych brain quiz using this model of the brain, and I'll go through the major parts that you'll have to know. I'll also be doing this in class, but this video will be available for you so you can study it outside of class. And I'll be using it based on the sheet that I gave you that has the structures on it. I'll also be providing the functions of the parts of the brain in class. And so the quiz will contain both of those parts where I'll point to the areas and you tell me the structures, and then there'll be a separate part where you'll describe the functions of the brain. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll start with the outside of the brain with the lobes. Okay, so the frontal lobe is considered this area of the brain here. Okay, all this extra cortex that's in this region, that would be the frontal lobe. Parietal lobe is labeled as number 2, so the parietal lobe would be here, so basically kind of in this region of the brain. Number 3 is the temporal lobe. Temporal lobe is labeled here, so this whole area is considered the temporal lobe. And number 4 would be considered the occipital lobe, which would be in the back. Okay, so that's the area on both sides. This would be the occipital lobe here and here. Sometimes this is also called the visual cortex or the striate cortex, just so you know. Okay, now we're going to have to go inside the brain to look at some of these other parts. Okay, so we'll need to identify now the hippocampus. So that's inside the brain, underneath the cortex. So you can see I'm taking off the cortex here in the model. And if we look at number 6, that corresponds on your sheet to the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a very distinctive structure. It does have a kind of a seahorse-like shape, a thin part with a thicker part there. Again, you'll see this in class, but there's the hippocampus. And then we have the lateral ventricles, which is labeled as 7 on this brain. So this would be the lateral ventricles. Again, this would be a fluid-filled chamber in the brain, filled with cerebral spinal fluid, but obviously in the model here it's just kind of depicted this way, but this becomes basically a hollow chamber of fluid. Okay, putting this sort of back together, we'll look at the next structure, or the next area, which is going to be the corpus callosum. Put all this back together. Okay, the corpus callosum is a thick band of fibers here. Okay, so it actually starts right here and goes all the way down, and it actually connects the right and the left hemisphere. So that's the corpus callosum. The basilar artery is labeled as number 14. So if we're looking at this part of the brain, this is a major artery. I don't really have a lot of the arteries that we'll quiz over, but this one's a major artery that runs from the base of the brain down to the spinal cord. This is the basilar artery right here. Okay, the cerebellum is, I'd like to put the whole thing back together here first. Let's see if I can. Voila. So if we look at the whole brain, the bottom part of the brain would be the cerebellum. So there's two kind of halves. This is one cerebellum, this is the other, but it's a very distinctive structure. If you're looking at a side view, this is the cerebellum here. Very, very distinctive looking structure on the base of the brain. Okay, then we have the thalamus. So again, we'll have to look inside for that. So looking at a sagittal or side view of the brain, the thalamus would be considered this part here, number 21 on the sheet. Number 22 would be the hypothalamus, so right below it, hypothalamus. Number 23 is called the hypophysis, but it's really more commonly called the pituitary gland. So number 23, I would just say that's the pituitary gland. And number 24, the optic nerve right here. Okay, so the optic nerve will kind of come up across the front, and that'll be the nerves for your eyes, for vision. And you can see it's a big stalk of myelinated fibers. Is basically a nerve. Okay, the last two are going to be the pons and the medulla. And it's not directly labeled on the brain model that I have, so I'm just going to use some references here. The pons and the medulla are in the brainstem. The first bump in the brainstem is considered the pons, so you can kind of see a distinctive bump there. That's the pons that goes inside as well. And then the second distinctive bump would be considered the medulla. So this would be the medulla area, sometimes called the medulla oblongata because it's kind of long. Okay, so review, that's the pons, the first bump. Second bump would be considered the medulla. Okay, so that's the major parts of the human brain based on this model. And again, I'll be showing this in class so you can see it more directly. This brain will also be available during office hours so you can study it. But hopefully this video helps you also understand it a little bit further.